Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of The History Buffs. This is a time where I usually welcome in my co-hosts. However, today is a special day. We've decided to forego that, and I'm going to be taking this solo. You can see they're in the window along with myself. However, they are going to be no help to me. I am going to be your guide on this quest as we explore the Black Death together. The Black Death. Now, some of you may have heard of the Black Death in history classes. I have this nice PowerPoint that a friend was lucky enough that I was lucky enough to acquire from a friend, and the Black Death came to Europe in 1347. Now, where did it come from? Did it appear out of thin air? That's a great question. I know RA was thinking it. It actually spread on the back of rats, carried by fleas, as one of my former co-hosts was nice enough to point out.
Question: is that how you spell flea?
That is how you spell flea, R.A.
Oh, okay, like the animal, not the verb. Sorry. Anyways,
verb. Although, good question, because you could make the case the people of Europe should have been fleeing away from the
fleas.
Right? Should have been fleeing out of cities. Anyway. The rats traveled along with Genghis Khan's army. Now, has anyone here heard of Genghis Khan? No one's heard of Genghis Khan. No one?
Can you not see us? We all raised our hand.
Everyone rose their hand.
I'm reading from the goddamn PowerPoint. I can't see.
Oh. All right, Mr. KDL. Sorry, we'll work.
Sorry.
Yes, we all have heard.
Yeah,
of
we were
Genghis
all
Khan, or Genghis Khan, whatever you want to say.
Verbal. I'd like some verbal reformation, please.
I have to mute myself because I'm laughing. But.
Got it. Yes, we're muting ourselves as well. So go ahead. Sorry. Yes, we all have.
You've heard of Genghis Khan. Ned, tell me a little bit about Genghis Khan. What did you learn about him?
Genghis Khan was a Mongol warlord born to humble beginnings who rose to lead a huge army that not only conquered most of China and to the south, into the present-day Vietnam, but all the way to becoming the Great Horde and all the way to the gates of Europe in the middle of the 13th century, in the 1200s.
That's right. Very good. A+ for Ned. So yes, Genghis Khan swept across Asia, from China, Mongolia, up into Russia, and even just across Asia Minor, towards Europe at a frantic pace. I'm sure Ari's putting a banner up. I can't see it.
Nope, it's okay.
There's no need for a banner.
No banners tonight. This is all your forum.
Great.
No distractions.
Fantastic. And as he went, Genghis Khan was not only brutal to the people he attacked, he was also brutal with what he brought along with him, being the Black Death. So, Ned, you did a great job explaining Genghis Khan. You also mentioned how the Black Death came to Europe. It came with Khan. As he came closer to Europe, so to the rats. And what we're really going to see happen here is Europe's modern trade routes are actually going to be the thing that's going to be their demise here with the Black Death. So it first arrived in Black Sea ports. A good teacher would have a map to show this, but clearly this guy's terrible. So there's no map to show you where that is, but just trust me when I tell you the Black Sea is a little bit east of Europe. So it's like think of it as like the doorstep or the mudroom of Europe, if you will, right?
The mudroom.
The mudroom. So once it's in the Black Sea, it can get into the Mediterranean Sea, and once it's in the Mediterranean, I mean at this time in Europe in the mid 1300s, the Mediterranean has been the central trading hub, really of the world, of the westernized world that you think of, going back thousands of years, back to Rome, back to ancient Greece, and with all these trading routes, you're going to see the Black Death spread quickly. All right, the disease first made landfall, as it says here, in Sicily. That's in Italy, Austin. Soon, roughly 50%, 40 to 60% of the population was dead. All right, now, and something to understand about this disease is the first ship comes in, most people on the ship carrying this disease are wiped out. They're dead, they're dying, they're sick. It's practically a ghost ship. And as it pulls into the port, the port master, I don't know what he's called. I don't do this professionally, but the port master was actually he was dismayed. He told the ship to leave, said, take a hike. And it did. It went away. The damage was already done, though. This disease, not dissimilar to COVID in a way, actually had a dormancy period. All right. So by the time you were sick, it was possible you had already spread it to many, many other people. And in a city or a small island like Sicily, we're going to see this pattern repeat itself over and over again, especially in Italian cities, because that's where it attacks first. We're going to see it spread rapidly. All right. Cities are going to be most affected by the Black Death. Yeah. All right. What do you see in this picture? What does this picture show? Give me some feedback.
Looks like a skeleton with a Sith on a starving horse.
Mm-hmm. It's called a scythe.
Mowing down people.
It is a scythe.
Looks like
but no one likes to know it all.
Perhaps.
So keep it to yourself.
Is that also an army of skeletons behind him coming to mow down people?
Very good, Austin. I'd appreciate you raising your hand, but thanks for chiming in. You are right. There is a skeleton army behind this.
Sorry, Mr. KDL.
Thank you. What else do we see here? Anything else we see? What do we see? Let's look in the foreground, look in the background.
They don't look like they're having a good time.
One person at a time. I talk, you talk. Oh. All right. Before we do this, let's really examine not only what we see, but let's take a deeper dive in it and think about what it might mean, what it might represent. All right. Go ahead. All right. I apologize for cutting you off.
I think the skeleton represents the plague.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's just going at people in Europe.
Going at people in Europe. Well, thank God you do nothing in the history field either. I mean, that was a tragically awful answer.
Thank God I'm right.
Any other? Do we observe anything? Let's look a little bit again. Let's get a little bit closer.
It's very small. Let's see.
I see a naked woman on the right.
Ooh.
Oh yes, yep. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but yes.
Oh wow, yeah. Someone's grabbing a handful.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah.
Huh.
Let's look now. Here's
something
something
in 1945.
Is that castle behind the horse and the skeleton supposed to look like a monster or the devil or something like that?
Yeah, it looks like it's eating something.
Yeah.
No, it's the gate. It looks like the gates of a city to me. It looks like the wall.
Or is the gates of hell?
Or the gates of hell.
That's a very good connection, Austin. Because I mean, put yourself in the shoes of these people. They're totally healthy one day, and all of a sudden they're on the quick road to death. Right? They're perfectly fine one day, dying the next. You could make an argument, especially in this time period, that it was like opening up the gates of hell.
And maybe the people also thought this was a sign from God and they were being punished for being sinful.
Right.
Because they couldn't identify what the cause was.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Now, there is one more thing I want to draw your attention to before we move on here. This is something I don't have an answer to. This has eluded me for years. All right, one of the great questions of my life. Why does there appear to be a bear in the left-hand side?
I saw that as well.
Yeah, I do not understand that.
Pushing against the walls of hell.
Or maybe because it looks like there's some kind of like crank or a wheel that he's next to. Oh, it's probably for the gate. I gotcha. Maybe he's the gatekeeper.
I don't know about bears being gatekeepers of anything.
I don't know. Really, skeletons rode on horses either, but here we are.
The skeleton next to him doesn't seem to be bothered, but there's a bear behind him.
No.
Oh,
interesting.
Very good. Oh yeah.
Is this a Hieronymus Bosch painting, by the way?
What's that?
Is this a Hieronymus Bosch painting, or is this?
Yes. Yep.
Oh.
Very good. I'm surprised you. I'm surprised you knew that, but yes, that's actually exactly what it is. And something else that's interesting. We'll get to this in a couple lessons, but you can see the faces, the lack of humanism going on in this versus what we're going to see later on in the Renaissance post the Black Death. So there's going to be a lot of impact, not only societal, but we're going to see the Black Death impact things like art. All right, so be sure to keep.
Mr. DL, if I recall, History Buff's episode back in August.
Mm-hmm, sure.
I think I mentioned that.
You did. You definitely.
Someone picked the Gutenberg Bible as the. But I think I picked the impact of art.
Whoever did that deserves an F.
Yeah, honestly, it was the printing press. It wasn't the Bible, but here we are.
Here we are.
Boring minus. All right. So what was the Black Death? Mentioned this a little bit earlier. Black Death consisted of many different types of bacteria. That's something not a lot of people know. You have 3 different types, if you can see here. Does anyone want to attempt to pronounce these? Austin, how about you give me the first one?
Sure, it's bubonic.
And how does that rank? Have you heard of that before?
Yeah, I think that's the worst one of the 3.
Okay.
I've read about the symptoms and they sound pretty miserable.
Gross.
Your lymph nodes in your groin and your armpits just expand until they start pussing and boiling, and then you die.
Yep. Well, thanks for paying attention. You can see on the next bullet point, it actually says the mnemonic one was the most severe version. That was also the most easily translated. I appreciate you.
Still, bubonic sounds
Thanks for
really bad.
playing.
I appreciate you teeing that one up for me.
Whatever.
There's one in every class, right, fellas?
Yep. Yeah. Well, maybe you could explain that, because if the fleas bite, they go from the rats to the humans, the fleas, and then they bite the human, and they jump off and they bite another one, or they bite another human or something. But they're delivering the Yensis bacterium. I forgot what it's called. But what's the difference between bubonic and mnemonic?
Well, great question. That if you want to chime in, you can as well. I feel like you have a little bit of prior knowledge to this, and I appreciate you doing the pre-class reading.
Thank you.
But you're going to see a difference in severity and reaction. So you're going to, obviously, as it says in the next bullet point, as I pointed out, you have different, severities in terms of death being a result, or death being more likely as a result. But also you have some pretty terrible symptoms that go along with it. So it wasn't only you get sick and your organs start to shut down and then you die. There was a lot of the severity of the symptoms, as Austin was alluding to, the wrong term, but the right symptoms. You have oozing sores and pusses, and your insides start to not work properly. If you're following along, much like Justin on All in the Minute Family last weekend. Actually, a lot of similarities between the plague and what I watched on
Saturday night.
Saturday night, yeah.
It says that mnemonic, according to the reading from last night, it was that mnemonic plague results in you spitting up blood, coughing up blood. So maybe Justin did have that.
It's possible.
Wow.
Ooh, did Justin have the pneumonic plague? That is something.
That also, last night it said that in the reading, it says that there's just like fever, weakness, headaches, nausea, shortness of breath, and like pneumonia, which seems a lot better than having giant bubons and systemic plague that that results in necrosis.
Sure, and I understand why.
Like I'd rather have a cough than
Yes, and I agree, and I understand why you'd make that point, but I'm a little concerned by your short-sightedness and the fact that you're not considering they weren't living in a time of modern medicine. So yes, chills and a fever and shortness of breath, that all sounds like something we could handle in today's world, but you have to remember that wasn't the case in the 1300s, all right? And the fact that it was the most easily transmitted makes it the most severe.
So it's just the flu.
Yeah, but back then for the flu, they would bleed you to try to cure you.
Which was
leeches.
Let's open a vein. Have some, yeah. All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. What is the septicemiatic?
Is this systemic?
No, I think it's septicemic.
Septicemic. I think
it's septicemic.
I think it's septicemic.
Oh, you don't know.
Oh, you don't know, right? I
figured you would know.
No, I don't know the pronunciation of it. I don't. That's why I asked you guys to say it for me.
Oh, you know what? Your friend probably knows, right? Who gave you the PowerPoint?
Yes.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I keep forgetting this isn't yours.
Again, if it was mine, there'd be more pictures, more color. Although I do like the black and white contrast. Very ominous.
Yes.
Aria, do you want to look up the septicemic version of it, or no?
Yeah, it's got necrosis. Like your skin just starts to fall. Shit. Yeah, that sounds a little worse. Like I said, I'm fine with a cough if it's 1350. I'm still cool with a cough. But if my limbs start falling off, I'm a little concerned.
I still don't think you're understanding the fact.
Oh no, I get it. I understand it, but honestly, or my finger falls off. Put me at any point in history, and I'm a little alarmed. That's just me, though. What do I know? I'm just the student in this exercise.
Yep. Not a lot of laughs, either one.
Not a lot of laughs when your fingers fall off.
Are you finished? Do you mind if I take the reins of the class back?
So sorry.
With your permission, all right, I'd like to move on.
Yeah, please.
I can do that?
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. So we're going to get into more of the nitty-gritty here in a little bit. But as you can imagine, once it gets into the ports, it gets into the city-states that were prevalent in Italy, moves around Italy, follows the trading networks, and eventually will move around all of Europe. You're going to see a progression. If you can picture Europe again, the fact that there's no map on this PowerPoint blows my mind. if you can picture Europe, Italy's, you say, it's like the southern edge, at the bottom of Europe. All right, and so the disease will spread up through Europe as the years go along in a sort of a 5 to 6 year cycle. So it eventually spreads up and around and back down and up and around and back down. This pattern will repeat itself really for the most part of the next, into the 1400s for sure. So for at least 50 years, if not close to 100 years. As this happens, the symptoms will become less and less severe. But you're going to see cities being most affected, as you can imagine. We touched on that a little bit with the various city-states in Italy, the port cities, the death, and even think back to that picture with the Army of the Dead, right? What was that called from Game of Thrones? I can't think of it.
The White
Walkers.
White Walkers. Yeah, there you go. White Walkers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like real history. So.
A question, Professor DL.
Please go ahead.
Was it seasonal? Was it more severe in the summer as opposed to the winter, or because of the rat population and the fleas and cats and dogs too? I guess
it didn't seem to be. If anything, it seemed to be less severe in the northern areas. There's parts of what would today be, I guess you'd say, Germany, Poland area, where they were generally unaffected. One, because the population was very scarce and very low, but also the colder temperatures.
So the colder temperatures
played a factor. So we're going to see, and I think this will lead us into a good discussion here. But the title of the last slide is "The Greatest World Disaster in Human History." And there might be some disagreement on that. All right, well, huh? So the arrival, something that a lot of historians underestimate about the Black Death is that Europe was already crippled before the Black Death arrived. If the Black Death was a knockout punch, Europe was already on the ropes, as they say.
Yep.
You had a famine that was going on for about a decade prior to this. Poor farming techniques, not rotating fields, that sort of thing, led to lower food production. You also had cold winters, and what you see is even before the plague comes, you have about 10% of the population of Europe dying off because of the famine and other factors before the Black Death even came around. So with that, and I think we talked about this a little bit last class, you had 25, 30, 35% of Europe was wiped out by the Black Death. Add that on with the famine that happened a decade or so before, and you're looking at upwards of 40, maybe even closer to 50% of Europe wiped out.
And the and I think, I'm sorry, I'm raising my hand, Professor.
Go ahead, yes, please.
So maybe RA can check the exact date, but I believe there was a South Pacific volcanic explosion that occurred earlier in that century, that did cause the
mini ice age
going in. It was like a mini ice age because of this volcanic eruption.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. So it caused the famine because of crop failures and unusually cold temperatures for about 10, 15 years. So you're right.
Interesting. I didn't know the backstory behind that. I appreciate you sharing and actually contributing something positive to the class instead of just criticizing and laughing at others' misfortunes that might have had to fall into doing something like this. So I thank you for that. So that concludes the lecture portion of class. Thank you, Ned, for being a participant. Austin, you were there also. RA, we will be speaking after class. But before that, let's get into this conversation. Let's have a little discussion, a little turn and talk about the greatest world disaster in human history. Agree? Disagree? What do we think? Who wants to open up with that discussion?
I need a second to think.
Yeah, me too.
You usually do.
Greatest.
I would.
Mount Tarawera in New Zealand exploded or erupted, for you fancy folk, causing a little ice age in about, I think, 1315 to 1319-ish.
Yep.
All the smoke in the atmosphere, just, bad news. Greatest disaster in world history?
Is the Black Death the greatest disaster in human history? I'm on the record saying it is, as pointed out by my friend's PowerPoint. Prove me wrong.
Good point. Let's see.
Well, could we have that? Maybe the discussion is related to the PowerPoint. Is it the Golden Horde of Genghis Khan? I mean, he killed hundreds or tens of millions. I don't know about hundreds of millions.
That actually wouldn't be a bad, because
wiping out civilizations. I mean, it went down through his sons divided his empire afterwards. Mm-hmm. But Subukai was his general, and that guy was a cruel motherfucker.
What's the statistic about him? So it's 90% of
1 in 12 people, men today. 1 in 12 of all over the world.
That's right. Yeah.
Carry a chromosome from Genghis Khan.
Yeah. It's a lot of ladies.
It's a lot
of ladies.
So, what do you mean by greatest? In what?
Yeah, like best, like most.
Yeah, like did it have good outcomes from it? Like, or good for the society and civilization?
Thank you for asking a clarifying question. Let me rephrase. I would, by greatest, I mean had the most impact on what we know today as the progression of modern history.
Yeah,
that didn't seem to help you.
No, it did. I would say that. Yeah, I think it probably is the greatest disaster to hit the world. As someone who's very pro capitalism, I took a class in college called "The Geopolitical Origins of Capitalism and How the West Came to Rule." Maybe the most pretentious class I've ever taken. But they argue
that author. He's a good guy.
Yeah. Very well known.
I've met him before. He's like 30-ish. He's really, really good guy.
Alexander Nievas? Yeah.
Yeah. Real honest.
Very smart.
He argues that the Black Death was, like you said, the knockout punch that really pushed Europe towards creating more like strict borders between countries and bringing forward free trade and capitalism. Really forcing that, because feudalism was already on its way out because of the famine, and this really, just knocked it out. There was just no feudalism was just a outdated system at this point, and this really helped push forward capitalism, which helped push forward the world towards democracy and better political systems as well.
I was going to say that Ned, I'll let you go in a second, but just kind of jumping off of that point, it leads directly to the Renaissance, which I think is kind of what you were talking about anyway, which Renaissance literally means rebirth.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a rebirth, fresh start. You're not going to see countries, like specific countries with borders quite yet, but you're going to see more things like independent city-states, areas that might still be controlled by a king, but are, I guess you say laissez-faire for that time, right? Hands off for that time, not a feudal or caste system, more of a, like, I own this area. If I need an army to fight for me, you guys are going to fight for me. But
you didn't have,
do what you want.
You didn't have nations. You didn't have nations by definition. You had kingdoms. Mm-hmm. And so, the King of England at the time was fighting a war that would last 100 years with the French king over his not England's, but his personal possessions in France.
Right.
So, one year it was an English territory, then they lose it and it becomes a French territory again. So you didn't have nation. You had borders, and you had tariffs to cross those borders and to bring in products, and you probably had to pay fees, I would assume, if you're going to go from Italy into Spain or something.
Oh yeah, there were definitely taxes.
But I don't think there weren't any like nations, and so when you had the port managers, I guess for lack of a better word, when they would see the plague ships come in, they knew plague ships. Now back then too, a captain who was on the up and up, he had a plague flag, so he would hoist a flag identifying this ship has plague. But if it wasn't legit, he'd go in and wouldn't say anything, and they'd find out he's there. So it was pretty rough. Edward the Third of England had 8 children with his wife. 3 of them died as adults from the plague when they were adults. So it reached all levels of society. One of them on our way to getting fucking married outside of Bordeaux. So it kind of sucks. Yeah, not a lot of laughs on that ship.
No,
Not a lot of laughs.
So what do you think, Ned? Is it the greatest disaster in human history, or I guess did it have the greatest impact of what resulted from it?
I think. Well, the greatest impact result. I have to agree with the Tritalist Austin. He's 100% right on that. But with the problem I have is I'm like, okay, keep the fucking fleas off you. You'll be all right.
So
wash your dog, wash your cat. I'm thinking 21st century. Be clean, take care of yourself, and you wouldn't get it. But no, you would get it because the idea too, like as Ari said, having a limb fall off, you'd rather have a cough. Well, I'd rather like fight a plague than fight fucking a million screaming Mongolians coming across on ponies to kill me.
Yeah.
You're gonna die.
Wow,
keeping the fleas off you, I mean, that would be tough, especially
It's impossible.
If you think they're coming from your animals too, it's like you have to keep your animals clean. Like that's impossible. You don't have the water supply to keep yourself clean at that point.
And they didn't know that was the source. I'd like to know.
But
also
KDL, when did they find out it was a flea-borne bacteria?
That's something I don't know, but another part of it is it was airborne too.
Yes, because
it could be spread person to person. So if you think back to, I don't know if you've seen it, and again, this guy's an idiot. He should have a picture of this in there somewhere showing the big mask that you've seen, the big like nose.
Yes.
They're hospital mask, or the
bird mask.
All the masks we wear for COVID when we go out. If we were in the 1350s, they'd be a long nose like a beak.
I'm actually in favor of bringing those back.
Yep.
We should bring those back.
We should bring those back.
So they thought that it was bad air, so they stuffed the beak with like flowers and other good smelling things they thought that it would have
been the smell anyway, though, right?
Yeah, it probably would smell anyway.
Yeah,
those boats start popping.
They put no. I think I've heard conflicting reports on this, but we know the ring around the rosary ring around the rosary.
Yeah,
that came from. I've heard, and again, I've also heard that it didn't, but I've heard that it came from the Black Death era and Pocket Full of Posy. That line. The posy is a flower they would shove in the beak of their mask to prevent it from getting it. I mean, they had like islands, especially in Italy. They had little islands where they would ship people that had it, and the only people they would basically just turn into mass graves. People would just die and they just stayed where they were. But yeah, that nursery rhyme. I think again, I've heard both things that it did, and then it didn't actually come from the medieval Black Death time. But yeah, I think the nursery rhyme with the pocket full of posy was what they put in their beak.
And I don't think you could. The idea of personal hygiene and cleanliness was probably a pie in the sky wish. Yeah. People stuff their mattresses with straw. Mm-hmm. So and where do fleas live? They live in straw and shit.
Yeah. So and again, cities. Think of cities. What's even today? Filthy might be an overstatement, or it might not be, depending on what city you look at. But what's the dirtiest part of society today?
Yeah,
it's in cities, right? Mm-hmm. And you're going to see the same. I mean, same thing happens then. 10 times, 100 times worse.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why it spreads so easy. And you see the same thing today with COVID going on, right? I mean, we're the biggest hotspots, obviously, where the most people are.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's the same idea. And it doesn't help that that's where a lot of the travel is, just like back in the that time period. That's where a lot of the travel was as well. Right?
The commerce.
Yeah, trade, travel going into port. Yeah,
and the fleas just jumping from animal to human because the animals died of it too.
Right.
The cats, the dogs, and the rats all died of it as well.
Right.
But yeah, it was kind of disgusting. But all right, what did you say was the most?
I can't like a natural. I guess you could classify this as a natural disaster.
It doesn't have to. It can be any.
I know, but I'm trying to like a disaster. What that's what I'm getting hung up on.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, I would say it's a type of natural disaster. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't think. I mean, we'll see how. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like World War II or like the Cold War or.
I mean, the way I'll split it, it's either man-made or a natural disaster. Think about it like that. They both
I know that. But I can't think of anything off the top of my head. We'll see how COVID turns out. That's the kicker, because I mean, God knows what things are going to be like in 20 years because of COVID. But
it's never going to end. We're going to have a bazillion strains. We're just wearing masks forever and stay inside forever.
Well, I want those plague masks. I'll wear one of those.
Yes.
Keep people away from you too. Imagine you have
back. And it would help maintain social distancing.
It
Yeah.
would.
Definitely.
You physically couldn't get close to that.
You
close enough to people.
3 feet from you, and you have one that's 3 feet, and we look at each other. You have to be 6 feet apart. Works out well.
I think if I was a dinosaur, that meteor hitting the Yucatan Peninsula 60 million years ago, that would have been pretty impactful for me.
That would
That
have
would
been.
be.
That would have been pretty bad.
Well,
Yeah,
you might know.
Not a lot of
bad
laughing.
time. It's just like a bad time.
Yeah.
Pour it out for the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Wasn't there another big meteor crash? And here we go off the rails. Wasn't there another big meteor crash like 10,000 years ago or so? 10, 12 that like ended the last ice age that killed like more than half the world's population.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I don't know either.
Nope.
Because that one just came to mind in terms of disaster. But I guess we'd have to clarify it, like the post Christianity era.
No, the most recent mass extinction event was the dinosaurs.
It was the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Besides the one that we're in right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are we in like a massive mass extinction event?
Yeah, we're like killing off a lot of the.
What is it?
living
What is it
beings.
worldwide right now? Do we know for COVID?
No, I stopped counting.
Oh no, I'm not talking about COVID. I'm saying just like
Just
we're
in general,
in the
just
middle
other
of like
species.
yeah, like because of like the changes that humanity is doing to the world, like we're eradicating a bunch of species. And
Oh,
alarming
you're
rate.
talking. Okay, I thought you.
Yeah, no, I'm not making a COVID joke because COVID's not funny.
I don't think what you were referring to, Katie.
Katie, I would think that's funny is beyond me. But
I don't think you're referring to like a meteor or a comet or anything like that, because there was a massive die-off of large predators because they ran out of game, like the saber-toothed tiger and the grizzly bear's ancestor, and dire wolves, things like that.
All right, you guys
Real-
talk
real
amongst
history.
yourselves. I'm
not sure if there was.
The teacher's giving you guys some free time. Talk amongst yourselves.
In 1908, there was a comet or an asteroid hit somewhere in central Siberia, and they said it shattered windows in Paris. Because they look at the and they didn't discuss. They didn't. It took them 20 years to find the location.
How did it take that long to find that?
Perfect ring of trees. Well,
Siberia is really big, and Russia was really backwards.
Yep, in 1908, not really many people flying either. So especially
True.
there.
No.
But they came across it and they found the trees, perfect, all laid out like a asteroid hit it pretty fucking hard.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
11,000 years ago. 11,000 years ago, and it ended because the Earth just turned a little bit. So it's
Close.
Oh,
yeah, close though.
Yeah, So the Earth turned a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get. I mean, this isn't a science show. I'm not gonna get into the nitty gritty on that.
So then if we're going to reclassissify this as natural versus man-made, so then you vote for World War II as man-made overall.
Yeah, because they brought about the atomic era, and it brought about the Cold War, and it shaped a lot of modern politics.
Well, if you're doing that, then I'm doing World War One, because World War
Yeah.
II doesn't happen without World War One.
Yeah, I would agree with World War One.
We
It also
literally just
completely
talked about
changed
that before.
the entire political system of the entire world.
I would say
Goes
so.
from empire building into individual states again.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that.
Wrong again. RA. He's not interested. He's like the kid. He's like
checking his room.
Like,
That's
playing
like
with dogs
huge.
or,
Yeah,
looking out
I
the
got
window.
ADHD. What do you expect? This is what class was actually like for me.
Hey, you asked for this.
I'm pumped we got this.
You asked for this. God.
Yeah. But dude, I don't think we did. One thing we didn't discuss, because I had a great map. I sent it to RA. It cycled almost a complete circle from the Asian steppes, from the Caucasus south, in 1 year, and then the next year it's further, and then turns all the way up to England in like 1349 or so, or whatever. Was that it? Yeah, 1348. It doesn't really hit Scotland for another year, which is interesting. And then it circles, by 50, 51, it's in Northern Europe, and then it's all the way back to Eastern Poland, Western Russia, the steppes area.
Yeah.
Like 8 years, 9 years later.
itself.
It does like an entire loop.
And
cool.
what did we learn? Someone else explain to me. What did we learn? Well, why does that happen? What laid the groundwork for the Black Plague to cycle around like that? Yes,
Go ahead,
you.
go ahead.
Trade routes.
Bang! Look at him go. Trade routes. Yes, very good. Trade route caused the Black Death to cycle all around Europe. Didn't go anywhere. Not good.
Not good.
But yeah, and I think to go back to your other question, Ned, I think that might be further proof that it did slow down in the wintertime because of the fleas weren't moving around as much, because the rats weren't moving around as much. But it took so long, right? Even I know obviously travel was a lot tougher, a lot harder back then, but travel shuts down in the winter, right?
Yeah. Also, the fleas were amazing as well when you think about it. I guess I remember reading a while ago. The reason why the fleas became like toxic and had the bacteria was because one of them they developed this thing where they couldn't process the food. So
they throw it back up.
Yeah, they were right, exactly. So they're constantly hungry, constantly looking to eat, and what they eat is like human skin cells or animal skin, dander or whatever. But they don't live long anyway. They live like a 30-day lifespan, I think, or maybe even 2 weeks. It's not that long. But in that time, they have sex and they try to eat, and they infected a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes you think, how many billions of fleas were there or are there?
Yeah, that's a gross idea to think of. Bugs.
Just the amount of ants on the planet,
I know this
people
one.
on the planet weigh the same amount.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Ants are productive, though.
Not really.
Yeah, they are. Ants do good things.
All right, again, not a science show.
This isn't a
not a science show.
This is not biology class.
Before we go off the rails, I thought this was a nice one-off. It was a topic Ned wanted to do, and luckily enough, I had a friend pass me some notes that I thought we could get through.
Just tell me next time, show some maps and stuff. That's all.
Yeah,
maps would be nice.
I know.
Spell check.
It's almost like that was like the first PowerPoint he ever put together, and then he was going to edit it again last spring, but then COVID happened, so it completely changed the way that teaching was going on. So he didn't have to, and now he's teaching the same thing again. He's going back into it and realizing that, oh crap, I need to fix this before next week when the person teaches it. You could make that thing.
So you're
oddly specific.
Yeah. So you'll edit it for him and send it and help him out.
I think it's only right. He let me use it
like a test run.
All right.
Exactly, like a test run. So I thought it was a good little one-off, shorter episode. Well, I think we'll talk about topics.
What do we want to do next week? What are we going to do?
I think we might have a special guest next week.
Oh,
yeah. Dan Carlisle.
Carlin.
There we go.
Yeah. I can't spell it. You can't read though, Ned.
I guess not. I thought it was Carlisle. Carlin. Okay.
Carlin.
Anybody know him?
Yeah. My
Austin, do you know?
Unfortunately, no.
Reach out.
Yeah. Can you get him on?
Yep. I'll reach out to Twitter.
Might have a special. Yeah. Twitter was awesome. Might have a special guest next week. But if there are any topics you want to hear, or if you're just like, please don't ever do this again, let us know. I don't know. I think it's gonna be. It'll be mixed reaction, but I thought it was funny. I don't know. I had fun. You know what? I had fun doing it all you can, piss into the wind. How about that?
There we go. We learned a lot.
So as we wrap up, as always, be sure to like, subscribe, give us that 5-star review. All right, mash that like button. We will talk to all of you